If you're a knitter who's looking for some winter knitting inspiration, you've come to the right place. So if warm and woolly winter knits are your thing, please like, subscribe, and stick around. Hi, welcome to Music Maker. I'm Harriet. I've been a knitter and crocheter for over 40 years, and this is the first episode of a series that I'm calling Work in Progress Wednesday. Okay, so as you can see, this sock is well underway. I've dropped a few stitches. I'm gonna have to work on picking those up. It's an interesting sock pattern, and I've already finished the first sock, so I'm in the thick of second sock syndrome with this. And I've had this sock on the needles, on the double points is what I usually use for sock knitting, for months now. I really just want this sock to be done. In my video about my 2025 knitting challenges, I mentioned that I really want to start working on a long-term project, which is a pea coat designed by Shirley Payton. The yarn that I've picked is Juniper Moon Farms in Indigo, and so this is their Patagonia Organic Merino. So my plan for January is to swatch this. So if you saw my video about bad knitting, that video is basically about my own very bad habit of not swatching. So what you'll notice in this video about my works in progress is that I'm really working hard to kind of overcome that bad habit. And so if you see swatches and you're wondering where's the rest of the project, please understand that actually doing a swatch is a big hurdle for me. So the project that I have that's a holdover, another project that's a holdover from last fall is actually, I've started working on Andrea Mowry's Framed. And this is all I have of it, right? I have the ribbing of it. And I'm using these three colors. That's the plan. So again, hoping that I can get a little bit further along with that. Obviously past the ribbing would be great. In the month of January. So for a long time now, I've been interested in working a pattern by Canadian designer Jennifer Beal. I have a lot of her patterns in my Ravelry library, and they're always, they're sort of always in my mind. That's something that I want to start working on. And so I decided in 2025 that I am going to start off the year in January doing that. Because what seems to have been happening to me is I spend a year thinking that I want to start working on a pattern by this particular designer, and then the year goes by, and then sometimes another year goes by, and I don't get to it. So I'm prioritizing working on some of my Jennifer Beal patterns. Okay, so the first Jennifer Beal pattern that I want to work on is it's called the Step Aside Cardigan, and I saw this knit up a few years ago and really liked it, and so I did a swatch for it, yay me, and get engaged. And you'll notice that I left it on, try it on tubing, because this is one of those situations, and I'm assuming I'm not the only one, where I bought this beautiful yarn. I actually bought it for my birthday at the Mermaid's Pearl in Wickford, Rhode Island, and was so enamored of it that I took it home and I wound it up and I threw away the labels on it. And now I have all of these wound up skeins with no labels on them, and so I can only guess how much yardage I have. So I want to make sure that this skein sits off to the side, and if I need the yarn from the swatch, that I have it. And I want to pair it with this other yarn that I have probably had in my stash for 20 years. I don't know. The last time I remember working with this yarn was on a sweater for a friend's son, and he's now in his 20s. And at the time that I worked on this sweater, I think he was about 4. So it's been in there a while. And so this is a discontinued yarn, and I'm pretty sure I have enough of it based on the yardage requirements. and it's the right yarn for the job, and I have 2 skeins of it, so it should be perfect. But because it's been sitting in my stash for so long, I'm a little bit worried about whether it will hold up as I start to knit with it. Right? That's when you know that you're in trouble, when you're using a stash yarn and you're wondering if it's started to rot out somewhere in the middle of the skein. So that color may change, but if not, then I'm hopeful that these are 2 long-standing yarns that have been sitting in my stash that will finally find a home in a Jennifer Beal design, so something that I've wanted to do for a very long time. The Knitting Guild Association, of which I'm a member, is hosting their very first knit along, and first knit along ever, and so I definitely want to participate in that. And so I did a swatch, right? And I have a lot of Holst yarn, and when I did my my yarn stash kind of like walkthrough tour video, I actually didn't mention all of the the cones of Holst yarn that I have. I have a lot of Super Soft, and I have a lot of the Coast. And so, you know, whenever I start feeling like I might go on a yarn buying bender, I just picture the Coast Super Soft and the Coast and the Super Soft and the Holst cones that I have stashed away, and remind myself, you have a lot of yarn you could work with. I decided, well, to get gauge, I knew that I was going to need to marl 2 strands of Coast, and so this is actually 2 marled colors. One is called Moorland, and one is called Fauna. And what happened is I have the cone of Moorland, and I wasn't really thrilled with the color of that. That's sort of this like darker green. And the color of Fauna is quite nice. And so I'm thinking that the knit along pattern is for a cardigan, and so I think that marling these 2 together would look really nice in a cardigan. The reason I made such an enormous little swatch is because one of the things I wanted to do is kind of see how 2 strands of Coast held together kind of knit up at with different needle sizes. And so this is something that I learned obviously from doing, well, not obviously, but this is something that I learned doing the Master Hand Knitter program. And so I basically made a kind of what in the program is called a preliminary swatch, where you take the same yarn and you just work it in different needle sizes. And so I have this, you know, I have a seed stitch border to kind of hold it flat, but I have it worked 2 strands held double on US 3s, US 4s, US 5s, and US 6s, and then I block it and see what gauge I get for each of those, and wrote a little card that kind of identifies that for me. And so that's part of my project for becoming a more consistent swatcher is, again, as I talked about in my Bad Knitting podcast, is to kind of, you know, set an intention for myself as to when I'm going to make swatches and then follow through on it. And yeah, I can kind of create reference samples basically, so that I don't want to say this is when I'm not swatching, but so that I can swatch more efficiently maybe, right? I want to get in the habit of swatching, but I also want to make sure that I bear in mind that I, you know, had a long history of not swatching. And so in the back of my mind, I'm thinking swatching probably will always continue to strike me as something that's a little bit tedious. I don't know, I'm starting to like it better the more that I do it. And I think some of that is just from feeling like the pride of conquering a bad habit. And so I don't know. And it's also, you know, we're 2 weeks into the new year when all the New Year's resolutions still feel bright and shiny. So I guess what I'm saying is I know my own personality, so I'm trying to see if I can kind of, create a way to make swatching more efficient, more useful for me long term, so that I see the value of it. Okay, and so then the last major kind of winter woolly goal that I have is to try to finish up in the month of January a blanket that I started in 2023 it would have been. It's like it was just last year, but no, it was not last fall. It would have been the fall before last fall. So October 2023, Martin Story and Rowan Yarns put out a winter blanket with a lot of really nice motifs. I think I talked about this maybe in a Vlogmas. But if you didn't see that, and I don't remember which Vlogmas it was, these are some of the motifs, right? So it's color work, which I love. Did not love doing this particular motif, but it's done. So I'm doing it in a lot of Christmas colors. Right? I did this one, but it's a little too low contrast to suit me. And the nice thing about this, so this is that same motif. The nice thing about this is that this is very much a stash busting project for me. So that's kind of one of my overarching 2025 goals for, and I'm assuming it's one that I share with a lot of you, is to kind of, try to stash down a little bit. So that if you can delay an impulse by 15 or 20 minutes, right? So if you're like, I really want a snack, if you can tell yourself, you know what, I'm going to snack in like 15, 20 minutes. I don't need to get it right now. Most impulses last about 15 minutes, right? If you could say, I'll get that in 15 minutes, but in the meantime, let me do this other thing, you stand a better chance of resisting that impulse. And so that is one of the things that I do sometimes as a way to kind of slow my yarn buying. And then when I come back sometimes and I look at what I have in the cart, I'm like, I don't know, I'm not that thrilled about that color. It slows the impulse down most of the time for me. And so I just want to be more attentive of that in 2025. I spun up this bobbin. I think I spun it up during Tour de Fleece this summer. And when I purchased it, they had it plied with a white yarn, and I really liked the way that looked. Okay, so those are basically my knitting projects for January that I'm going to work on, my works in progress. So yeah, if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. As I've said elsewhere, I'm building this channel up from scratch, which is like trying to knit intarsia without looking. But I'm grateful for those of you who return to view and who have already subscribed. Please tell a friend. I hope that you have a wonderful week and weekend, and that you'll come back again and sort of see how these projects have been shaping up for me. Until then, happy knitting!